Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of my new podcast, Multifamily Chronicles. My guest today is Steve Jenkins. Steve is a veteran of the recruiting industry with over 30 years of experience. For the past 5 years, Steve has been active in a multifamily industry. I brought Steve on for his wealth of knowledge that he will hopefully share with us. And welcome to the show, Steve.
Adrian, I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Let's start at the very beginning by you introducing yourself, a little bit about your background, a little bit about your current business, what you're doing for our audience.
Okay, I'll try to wrap it up really quickly here. A little over 30 years ago, I had sold a franchise that I owned. I'd moved back to the Rocky Mountains, Colorado in specifics, and decided that I wanted to have a sales job. And the first job first interview I took, it was, believe it or not, selling photocopiers. Didn't really enjoy selling photocopiers. So I went into a recruiting office and said, hey, listen, I've always wanted to be a recruiter. Very few recruiters grow up wanting to be a recruiter. They kind of fall into it. I did it by design. So long story short, I started in high tech, did very well in high tech for quite a number of years. And then, gosh, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was approached by a very, very large multifamily housing industry to see if I could help them develop a better recruiting department. I closed my recruiting firm, went to work internally within the multifamily housing company, and was there for 2.5 years or so. I think I built it up quite a bit and then decided, I really want to have my own company again. So I then started just recruiting specifically within the multifamily housing industry, as well as the construction that goes into multifamily housing. And that's what I've been doing for the last little while.
Excellent. My first question for you, Steve, is what are the best ways to attract talent in our industry from your experience?
Great question. I think candidates, and we're all candidates to a certain degree. I mean, I place anywhere from, in this industry, maintenance techs and grounds people to CEOs. So sometimes you flip the script. And in order to attract the best candidates, you've got to have a good opportunity. And that is so multifaceted. The benefits, the travel, there are as many reasons that people have for making a change that there are people out there, I think. You've got to have a product that is worthwhile. Not everybody wants to buy a chicken. And so if you stand on the street corner and say, hey, listen, hey, you want to buy a chicken? You want to buy a chicken? You want to buy a chicken? Someday someone will buy a chicken from you. But you really have to offer to that candidate something that means something to them internally. It's got to satisfy something that is not being satisfied at present.
I'm so glad that you're bringing up the sales perspective, right? Selling a product, like a job. When we offer jobs, we're actually trying to sell a product to our prospects, right? And your candidates are your prospects. And I'm hearing very often lately, people don't want to work. Well, I actually think that they don't want to work under any circumstances. So it's not that they don't want to work. That's really not the case. So first of all, they don't want to work under anything, any circumstance, any type of pay, work environment. They're very selective. They're becoming very selective. So one thing that I will say to employers is that look at your product, okay? Don't blame it on a customer that they don't want to sell you, they don't want to buy your product, right? Look at a product. If they're really not buying your product, you can't blame it on a customer. You have to go back to the drawing board and build a better product. Whether it's benefits, whether it's salary, whether it's work environment, believe it or not, people nowadays are very, very savvy when it comes to jobs. They're actually checking glass doors. They're talking with their friends in the industry that had experience with your company. And if the feedback is not great, then, here we are. They're not going to be maybe interested in, applying for your company.
I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree. I mean, let's look back over history, and this may not be the best example, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. It was said that when somebody retires, this was years ago, after retirement, they live maybe 22 months longer. Why is that? They don't have inspiration in their life. They don't have something to go after. I totally agree with what you're saying, Adrian. People intrinsically want to be productive. People want to take something and make it better. And the types of candidates that I try to attract, try to magnetize, are those people who want to be able to say, see that apartment right there? When I was working there, I started with 50 work orders, and within a month, I was able to knock it down to 10 work orders. People, I think, by nature, are goal striving mechanisms. So I think you're right. And I don't want to anger employers out there, but if they're not attracting the right types of candidates, they may not be the right type of opportunity. I mean, it's a harsh world out there. And, I'm known as the recruiter that kind of tells the truth. If a client doesn't have what it takes, I do my best to try to upgrade a little bit so that they will attract the types of candidates that I'm able to chat with.
So my next question for you, Steve, is, obviously candidates are coming your way because for the most part, I say they're not satisfied with what they currently have, right? So I'm sure that you have a lot of great, wonderful insight that you might want to share with your audience about, what they're looking for. Now, the question for you is, second question, what can the property management companies do better to retain their current employees so they won't necessarily be out looking for different opportunities?
Another great question, Adrian. I really think that property managers have to pay particular need and not so much focus on each individual, but sort of pay attention to what the likes and the dislikes of each maintenance technician is. Years ago, I asked a very, very successful property manager. I said, listen, I recruit a ton of maintenance techs. I had 8 states and 40 properties. I said, when you were a property manager, she went into the training division. I asked her, when you were a property manager, how, as a percentage, how many complaints came in that were not maintenance oriented? And she said, well, about 75% of the issues that we had on the property were a maintenance issue. They weren't loud noises. It wasn't all the other things that maybe disturb a tenant or a resident. It was, this isn't being fixed. This isn't being picked up. I don't feel safe. There's not lighting on this hallway, stairway. There's ice out here. Maintenance issues. So I simply looked at her. I said, hey, listen, if that is the case, how about we spend a lot more time taking care of our maintenance techs? Pizzas, I mean, we always hear this. Pizzas don't do it. Recognition does. Respect wins the day.
That is such a great point. And you're absolutely right. Anywhere you would go on the internet, especially on a maintenance-related Facebook groups, you will see that the number one thing that maintenance guys are hating is pizza parties. They absolutely abhor pizza parties. Like, yes, everybody that's watching out there, please do something different for your teams for recognition. Do not offer them free pizza. Okay, that would not
I love pizza, but then again, I love, my wife is from the Middle East. She is a wonderful Persian cook. I don't want Persian food every single day. I want it to be extraordinary. And pizza is not what I would call extraordinary. There are benefits that I think companies can offer. I know companies that offer free boots, free gloves, and a tool reimbursement continuously. I mean, the boots, you can't be too profligate about that. You can't buy boots every month, but at least once a year, buy them brand spanking new boots.
Very true. Um, the next question I have, Steve, for you is, what are the top reasons for your candidates to get frustrated that determines them to make this move and come to you and say, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity? So what are the top frustrations with their current employer?
Many of them are telling me that they wish the employer would be faster. I mean, we have a supply chain issue right now. I get that. But in years past, we didn't have a supply chain to blame on the fact that we can't get supplies. Keeping the supplies flowing, having more inventory. I mean, these maintenance techs, they're the front line. They're the face of the company, even more than a lot of the other employees. And I hear from maintenance techs in particular a lot that they just wish they had access to more and better supplies.
Excellent. That's definitely, what I'm getting myself to for feedback. Better supplies and in general better support. It's not literally just supplies, but hey, how fast can we get the orders approved, right? They place an order and that goes to it gets escalated to a approval chain. And if it really takes days and days and days for supplies that they need immediately, that really doesn't solve the problems in a way that it should. So that creates frustration for sure for the teams and also for our residents too. For them having to wait a number of days to get their issues resolved.
I will say this in defense of all maintenance techs. My heart goes out to maintenance techs. My son was a maintenance tech many years ago in an apartment here in Aurora, Colorado. It is not an easy job. I mean, I've recruited in several different types of industries: telecommunications, data communications, in the environment, sales, and that sort of stuff. It's not so much it's a unique industry, but it is one of the top industries that I can think of that your customer, as compared to a retail job, your customer is there today, your customer is there tomorrow. And when you look at an apartment community versus say a retail store, somebody comes in and buys a backpack. You do your best job to satisfy their need. And then you may not see them, that you may never see them again. Somebody has a leaky faucet, you fix it. You will see them at the mailbox. You'll see them walking their dog. They'll recognize you're the one who did a good job or you didn't do a good job. So I'm not saying I'm on the maintenance tech side all the time, but this is a very difficult job. And sometimes you just need to give maintenance techs a little bit more of the attaboy treatment. Tell them that don't ever pass up an opportunity to praise somebody.
Praise goes such a long way. I completely agree. And also the type of attention that we have to treat our customers with, right? Because like you said, we run into them all the time. This is not a retail or a hotel type of business where people come and go every day. You might not see them again in your life. So you have to continuously provide this, type of great service if you really want to have happy residents, right? And increase resident retention rates. Now, when it comes to your candidates, Steve, let's say you present them with offers, money, benefits, PTO. What is the main thing, or what are the main things that really makes them say, "Hey, this is the deal. I will take it." Like, what makes the sell for you when you sell it to your candidates?
I don't know if you'd call that a loaded question or what, but it is. I take every single candidate on individually. And I always try to do what I call like the 3x3 matrix. That is, every candidate, I try to give them 3 to 4 separate opportunities. People want choices, not too many choices. I mean, I think there's this feeling out there that maintenance techs have an infinite number of jobs that they can go to, which gives them somewhat of a heady feeling like, hey, I don't need to take this. I don't need to take that. I mean, they've done studies that Baskin Robbins is a great idea. I mean, a great example. I go into Baskin Robbins knowing what I want. If I didn't know what I wanted when I went to Baskin Robbins, I'd be like my daughter when she was young. She would sit there and analyze this and like that, and it would take her forever to decide. But in regards to what candidates are looking for, some people, it's not money. I mean, when you look at statistically speaking over all the things, they want, it's kind of like a 8-cylinder car. It's the money, it's the travel, it's the commute, it's the team atmosphere. It's a lot of things. So I try to satisfy as many of those as I can. It's not the same with every candidate. That's why I very rarely offer somebody just vanilla. If you're only selling one item and that's all, if you can only sell your own company, that's where it becomes very difficult, because you may not have a community close enough to them. That's why I went independent again. I wanted to offer a lot more candidates, a lot more opportunities, because if they're a good candidate, they're a great maintenance tech, I feel almost duty bound to find them the right opportunity based on what they want and what the companies can offer. Not all companies offer everything, just like not every candidate can offer every company their skills and their skill sets.
I want to pick up on a great observation that you had on this latest response, right? And your observation was that you want to offer them options, but not 10 options or 15 options. People want to have options, but a limited number of options, not too many. And I think that brings me to a great situation that we're facing on our end of the industry, right? A candidate now could preload their resume and go to the Indeed app and literally just do a research if they're looking in where I'm located, right in Atlanta area, and just type in maintenance tech in Atlanta. There are probably 50 jobs that are going to populate the list. And with a one-click apply, he could literally apply to 50 jobs in like 5 minutes. How long does it take to do 50 clicks? Now, the hard part comes when those applications go and we receive them, right? As a management company, well, the competition starts. The clock starts ticking, right? And if you're not really fast in responding and actually calling that candidate and making an appointment, securing an appointment, if you're gonna wait even 6 hours, I think that you have a chance that you might never hear from that person again. They're only going to go to 1, 2, or 3 interviews, and then between the first 3 interviews, they're gonna make up their mind, even though they might respond to maybe 10 or 15 recruiters. At the end of the day, they're not gonna go to 15 interviews. Do you agree? Do you see this as a current candidate behavior that actually has changed due to the very easy way to apply via internet, via Indeed?
Yeah, I could talk about putting your resume up on the internet for an hour. I discourage it, actually. The trick to being a good recruiter is to find those candidates before they ever feel the need to put their resumes up on Indeed. And the curious thing about Indeed or these other apps is simply this. Adrian, let's say that you're down a person, okay? Let's say that you need one maintenance tech, which a lot of times means that the other 3 or 4 maintenance techs are overworked, right? One of them puts their resume up on Indeed, and you happen to see that resume, I maintain, and I've seen this happen scores of times every year, people lose their jobs. Not immediately, but people will lose their jobs for putting their resumes in too many places. When I see somebody with their resume on Indeed, I almost feel like, wow, maybe HR is going to see that resume. So I think the best way to recruit people is to get them before they have their resumes on Indeed. And what that takes is a lot of communication, keeping within your niche. Don't go too wide. I mean, there's a reason that I recruit basically in the state of Colorado and a little bit beyond that, not much. And that is, you can't, I mean, there are 1,600 apartment communities in Denver. There are 320 some apartment management companies. Some are fee managed, other are asset owned. There's enough to do here. I did recognize that those people who put their, and this is going to really come to haunt me what I'm going to say now, but I have found that when it comes to maintenance techs, if you're looking for a job and you've got your resume on Indeed, I would say that there's a 10% chance that you're one of the best. Very few great people need to put their resumes on Indeed. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And I want to follow up on this because, you kind of described on your end how you see things, but then what would you advise candidates? Like if applying on Indeed is really not the best idea, right, for the reasons you just mentioned, how would they go about, finding new opportunities if, the internet is not really the best way to do it?
Okay. I'm not saying that, yeah, being on Indeed is not the best way. It is a way to get a job. There's no doubt about that. You can apply to Craigslist. But in this industry, people who put their maintenance techs who put their resumes on Indeed are subject to dismissal. And many of them are, and I think you'd agree with this, many of them are already unemployed. And it makes me think, now, I'm a specialist as a recruiter. I'm not internal HR. I'm not handling more than maybe 7 or 8 companies at one time. So when I see somebody's resume on Indeed, they're the last people that I need to go to. I go to the people that I've spent an inordinate amount of time dealing with. So your answer, the answer to finding the very best jobs is simply know 2 or 3 good recruiters. And if you're looking for a job, I'll give an example. Yesterday, I had a really, really good regional manager, and this will also feed into the question of what are candidates looking to. This regional manager is doing extremely well here in Colorado, but she's from a different country that doesn't have direct flights from Denver to her parents. So she said, listen, Steve, would you help me in Miami? I said, I don't do Miami, but I have a relationship with another third-party recruiter, just like myself, in Miami that can help you find a job there. I say the best way to find a job has never changed, and it's to network. And the vast majority of the best jobs are coming through 2 sources, either through a third-party recruiter like myself or through somebody who you trust and know that can refer you to a company or into their own company.
That's a great way to say it, and I'm a big proponent. I'm a big heavy networker, as you know, and I think the challenge now, and I want to pick your brain on this, right? The challenge comes where entry-level candidates, groundskeeper, punch, and technician level. How do we get those individuals to network the 2021 way? We do have the word of mouth for sure, but then how do we get them to engage, to be active on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook? How do we get them to become active and be out there. So then, individuals like me looking for talent or like you, make it easier for us to find them.
I would, if you're asking about entry-level maintenance techs, I would really have a good relationship with every tech school that has an HVAC, plumbing, what we're going to call blue collar curriculum. I have a really good relationship with several of the institutions here. They're not that long course, maybe 18 months at the most, but they're the technology schools that are doing a really good job of getting people focused on HVAC or plumbing or electrical. That's one. Also, having a good relationship with guidance counselors in high schools. I'm an older fella. I remember a day when all high schools had CHOP. Every person in my cohort, my age category, knows how to fix things, and I think part of that is Mr. Edwards in junior high, Laramie, Wyoming, fascinated me with how to fix things. He was one of my teachers. They don't have that as much in schools, and so we're kind of, in a way, a victim of having high schools do away with the blue collar sort of wonderful jobs like maintenance, plumbing, being a tinner, HVAC, automotive, the whole thing. So yeah, I would have a good relationship with guidance counselors in your city where you're looking, and a good relationship with the teachers at the trade schools.
Those are wonderful tips. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with the audience.
Like our mother says, easier said than done. I mean, when you're tasked with having, like when HR, internal HR, is tasked with finding 30 maintenance techs in 15 different areas, it's impossible to have a good relationship with 15 different trade schools. I mean, the trade schools in 15 different cities.
Yeah, I just want to say this for the audience. You're making a great point. What we're talking about right here is practical solutions, but it doesn't mean that there are easy solutions. We're not providing the silver bullet, right?
No,
we're just providing ways. We're just providing many ways for for recruiters, for companies to get better at their game, at the recruiting game. But it doesn't mean that there are easy ways. Like there's no easy fix. There's no shortcuts. And it's just putting in the work and putting in a lot of work. It's a lot of work, takes a lot of time. Yes, but if you're willing to do it, then that's gonna get you there where you need to get.
Recruiting is a full-time task. I mean, before we started this, the broadcast or whatever, I'm amazed that you spend so much time recruiting. Most HR people, most managers don't have the time to recruit. That's why they rely so heavily on people like me, third-party recruiters, that this is all we do,
I do want to say that, I'm really passionate about helping people finding their next best opportunity. And that's why I am so involved with this. And a lot of time I do help individuals, not necessarily coming to work for my company. Like literally, I just help them get an opportunity anywhere. So I use my network for that, to refer them and to help them secure.
We're all in this together. I mean, if I can ever help a company who's not exactly an actual client of mine, I'll do that. My philosophy has always been one more happy person is a good thing for the entire planet.
It really is. And, change starts with us, really. If we expect for the change to happen or we're just sitting passive, it's not going to happen. We have to become the change. And, you have to invest in that. And I think at the end of the day, it's good karma too, right? There's no better feeling than just helping. I literally got late last night, I got a message from someone that I've helped get a property manager job. She said, I can't thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough. This is so wonderful. And we're talking about 2 weeks in. She used to be in property management, stepped out for a minute, and now she's ready to get back into the game. and reached out to me. We knew each other. We worked together a number of years ago. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to help you. I used my connections. I sent her resume to a few of my connections. And sure enough, it's 2 to 3 weeks from the moment we had our initial conversation that yesterday she got an offer and she accepted it. And she couldn't be happier. Like, this is the type of stuff that really brings a lot of meaning to what I do. Just seeing everything come to fruition, seeing people getting jobs.
Oh,
and
absolutely. Absolutely.
changing their lives really changes your life, right? You know, when
Well,
you're ready for the
let's
next
think
thing.
about this. Let's think about this, Adrian. Well, it's kind of like years ago, I was on a climb. My older brother's an expedition leader, so he's climbed all over the world. Mount Everest, Shishapang, Aconcagua, all the big mountains. He's been to the summit. But we were on a climb one day, and he looks at me, and I'd only been recruiting about 10 years at that point, and he said, you know, the way I look at it, you sleep a certain amount of hours a day, you work a certain amount of hours a day, and you play a certain amount of hours a day. So you really have to like who you work with and who you play with. And nowadays, people really have to give thought to where do they spend their time. And when people ask me, what keeps you in this recruiting game? My contention is just about everything that you have, your house, your car, your vacations, the ability to have family, whatever, is generated from your work, right? So as a professional recruiter, it gives me, like yourself, a lot of happiness to be helping people be happy in turn in the thing that they spend probably percentage wise most of their days doing, working.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better, Steve. Obviously, we could go like this for hours, and I would love to go for another hour or so. Unfortunately, the podcast format, you know, I like it to stay within, 30, 40 minutes, which
Well,
is
we'll
the
do it again.
average
We'll
commute.
do it again.
I hope that we'll do a part two, right? But before we close, Steve, right? I like to give you the opportunity to just say something to the audience, something that you wish you would have said, but there was not a question that came up, or just about anything about you. How can people, candidates, can find you? Whatever you like to add in closing.
Well, in regards to this industry, the multifamily housing industry, I may get some pushback for this, but I'm not always looking for that person who lasts an entire lifetime in this industry. This industry is replete with great training. A good property manager can do very well for 6, 8, 10, 15 years, and then easily segue into something else because of their broad scope relationship with so many different types of people, so many different types of financial equations, and the same with maintenance techs. I would encourage people to enjoy what they do here, knowing that if you put in a good 5, 6, 10 years as a maintenance tech, there's no reason that it might just be the stepping stone to something else. Now, as a recruiter and as a guy who makes his living having people come into this industry and maybe stay, that may be looked upon as blasphemy. But this is such a multi-faceted industry. You get in, enjoy it. Now, if you're not enjoying it, please step aside. I'll find someone that does enjoy this business, truly. But this is a great business. I would not have closed my very successful recruiting firm to go into this type of business. I wish I would have done this 20 years ago. That's I guess, my ad for the multifamily housing industry.
Steve, thank you so much for
more. I am at steve@staffchasers.com. steve@staffchasers.com.
everybody. Also, please make sure to follow up Steve on LinkedIn. He's fairly active out there. Network with him, and maybe something great is gonna come out of that networking part. Steve, it was a pleasure. I truly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you very much for coming. And to our audience, thank you very much for watching us. This is the Multifamily Chronicles, episode number 2. And I hope we will see you again to the next episode. Bye.
Adrian, it's been a distinct pleasure.